We are continuing our march towards the spring football game. And today I am joined by Mitch Wolf, staff writer on Eagle Insider, about some of the big storylines heading into this game. This isn't just about matchups or position battles. What are the big that are facing the Eagles heading into the game?
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On BC, AJ Black. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Talking spring football, and it's been a while, but we have back on with us for our weekly visit. Mitch, how's it going?
It's going well. It's nice to take an occasional break from doing my annual draft prep to think about players that are still in college.
Yeah, and we're now looking at the spring game, which is, as I just said, 4 days away. And the Eagles, it's a big one for Jeff Hafley. The game itself is not important, but we're prepping up for the season, and I think a lot of fans are pretty jaded heading into this game. Let's look at, it's a glorified practice, and not only just a glorified practice, but one where they don't hit very much. What are some of the storylines and things heading into this game, Mitch? Give me one that you're looking at heading into the spring game.
You touched on it a bit on yesterday's episode with the position battles, but it's the biggest storyline in all of Boston College football is the offensive line and how they're going to improve for the 2023 season. Now, I do not anticipate Christian Mahogany will play in this game, given the fact that he just rejoined the team for practice drills. He's probably still rehabbing that knee a bit, and I imagine they don't want to take any risks whatsoever with him, especially in a live spring game. And they know how important he is, so they're probably. I would be shocked if he plays a snap. You're not going to see him do any get any handoffs or do any fake keg stands like you saw last year. So, but looking at the rest of the players, like you mentioned, the position battle at right tackle is extremely interesting between Jude Bowery and Logan Taylor. The position battle at left guard between Kyle Hergel and a bunch of different players, I would imagine. And then you want to see how guys like the young guys like Drew Kendall and Oz Trapilo, how they improved during spring practice. So I think that's what's going to dominate the conversation. Obviously, it is the spring game, so we're not going to see a ton of like unique plays on offense or anything. We're not going to see them going at 100% speed or anything. So, take everything you see with a grain of salt, but that's going to be the one thing we're looking for. And I honestly think that if anything, and again, take this with a grain of salt, I think you're going to see the defensive line have an advantage over the offensive line, assuming they are healthy as well, because they're going to be deeper, they're going to be more experienced, and their job is easier.
Yeah.
Whereas the offensive line is as new, well, quote unquote new offensive line coach, quote unquote new offensive system with guys kind of learning to play together. So you're probably going to see more issues with them. You're probably going to see them struggle a little bit. But I would say don't freak out just yet, because like I said, they're going to need to get Mahogany back, and they're going to have I know it's the spring game, but they're going to have time to work some kinks out during the summer and then into fall camp. So, but again, that's the biggest storyline in my mind.
And so offensive line, just a cheap little plug too, with Matt Applebaum taking back over at offensive line coach, the recruits that he was going after in terms of class of 2024 has changed quite a bit. The guys that Googs was going after are very different. So I'm going to cheap plug here. We have a visitor list. There's up to BC this week, starting with today, Tuesday. Hafley loves to have guys on campus when there's practice going on. And this Tuesday group is heavy on offensive linemen. So I'm guessing it's a lot of meet and greets with and maybe looking at some film with these guys. Not many of them have offers, but a couple of the guys I was looking at was like, okay, 6'7", 300 pounds, 6'6", 320 pounds. They got some big dudes coming in. So I think that's going to change as well, the recruiting end of things. And we have a list up at Eagle Insider for VIP members. Now, the man of the hour is on the board too. And I think this is one that a lot of folks are going to be watching for, which is, I'll kick it off with this one, Mitch. The maturation and development of Emmett Morehead. This is his big year.
Yeah, and I saw. I remember addressing at least one comment on this in my AMA last week about somebody asked, how is Morehead looking? And as you've said a lot, and I've said a few times, we're not at practice. One, because I don't live anywhere near the area. Two, because you have a day job. And three, even if we could, they don't let us in. So we don't really know. We have to just go off, anonymous reports or what have you.
So
But
just to clarify again for our listeners, so the availability they have for the media and all the guys that write that they're at practice, take it with a grain of salt. They get to watch the guys stretch, warm up, and do about 5 minutes of drills. I've been at the practices. That's what you get to watch.
And you've said that was even in the policy under Adazio, correct? So
Yeah,
that's
it's not a
bad.
Hafley. It's not a Hafley thing. It's a BC thing.
Yeah. So take that for what it's worth. But what I said is that what I would hope to be seeing from Morehead is that he is essentially increasing what I would call play speed. And that doesn't mean that is he running faster or whatever, because he's probably not, because he's gained probably like 12, 15 pounds. But it's how fast is he mentally processing the game? How quick is he making decisions? And is he making the right decisions? Because at times I thought he flashed that pretty well, but I want to see him do that more consistently and then increase the pace of that consistency. I thought he did a really good job operating some RPO game, which they installed later in the year, which I thought was encouraging for the future of this offense. Obviously now it's a different coordinator, but whatever. But I want to see him, just playing faster, making quicker decisions so that the offense can stay on schedule. You don't put as much pressure on the offensive line, and then you can open up the rest of the offense to do basically anything you want. In terms of physical gifts, like he's pretty much got it. Like he's got the arm strength, and in terms of distance, velocity, you probably want to see him just generally improve on accuracy. And you kind of just want to see that happen for any quarterback as they play more and more and get more comfortable with their receivers. So yeah, I mean the development and maturation of Morehead is obviously huge. Again, that's something that I don't think we're going to be able to see a ton of, because, and again, I do you know like what kind of format they're going with this year, in terms of maybe not scoring, but like splitting up the rosters?
Hafley said at his press conference last week he's going to decide it like later this week. He didn't get it.
So there's a possibility that Morehead is dealing, that they do some kind of weird thing where they split up the rosters. I hope they don't. I prefer to keep essentially. I know this is weird in terms of scoring, but I prefer the formats where they do offense versus defense. The defense gets points for TFLs, sacks, interceptions, whatever. But because then you can keep the offense all together and you're not trotting out weird combinations where, you've got Matt Reeve at quarterback, but he's throwing to the three best receivers. Then you've got Emmett Morehead on the other side who's throwing to nobody. And then the offensive line is divvied up and you're creating chemistry with units that won't really exist when you're playing in games. So I don't know how much we're going to see of Emmett Morehead in terms of how much we'll be able to really tell about his development, but I would like to see, him operating the offense at a quicker pace than maybe he did last year.
And Hafley's also said too, like, don't expect them to open up the playbook.
And that too, obvious. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I can already see our fan base freaking out with, this is vanilla. Why are they running run, pass? He's made it very clear, and as he should, that this game is not going full playbook. In fact, I thought he did a good job kind of explaining it. The two practices they have on Tuesday and Thursday this week are going to be more than what you're going to see on Saturday.
Yeah, like you're not going to see this, like the play calling you saw at the end of that. Like you're probably going to see some very basic passes. I think last year they had one of that fun play to Xavier Coleman where he had a big touchdown. I saw the mahogany keg stand, but that was basically just a fake play just for fun. But you're going to see very basic passing concepts. You're going to see very basic running concepts. Like you might see one jet sweep, maybe one kind of misdirection run, but Hafley, we know here that he's known for being extremely cagey, perhaps more so than he needs to be, but that's just who he is. And that's definitely going to extend to the play calling in the spring game.
All right. In a moment, we're going to get into some more. We're going to look at the coaching staff and talk a little bit about some of the big storylines that are heading into this spring game that involve the coaching staff. We'll get into that in just a moment. Before I do that, baseball season's here. Mitch, are you a big baseball fan?
I mean, I'm a Pirates fan, so we're doing good now, except for the fact that O'Neill Cruz broke his ankle and is out for the next 4 months or whatever. But I mean, Brian Reynolds, I think, got NL Player of the Week. But rooting for the Pirates is generally a lost cause, so we'll see how long that lasts.
I have to say, as a parent, baseball is the first thing that I lost because I cannot afford watching games every single night with kids. But I do enjoy baseball. And if you do, you're going to see the grand slams, no hitters, and double plays. They're back. No in on the Major League Baseball action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no sweat first bet of up to $1,000. Just go to fanduel.com/lockedon and sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. So you can do prop bets. For instance, I saw someone betting today that Aaron Judge would get a 1.5 total bases. If he wins, you get the money. Super easy. Chris Sales go over. I saw that the other day. Super easy to win. So don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet of up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to fanduel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we're talking spring football here. I had someone ask me about starting interviews, and we have 2.5 months left before the start of the football season. We're gonna squeeze out every ounce of live football that we can, because starting on Sunday, it gonna be dead. And so we're going to be 5 days a week, and I can tell you, we're going to be looking for some big guests. If you want to, you can go back in our archives. We talked to Sean Marshall. We had my favorite interview I think we've ever done with Dennis Grossell last year. I really recommend going to listen to that. I thought he was on. Mitch and I talked to him last year. I thought he was awesome. Christian Mahogany. I've had Sean Marshall, Steve Aponovicius. I've had a lot of guys on the show. So go back in our archives. And also, last time I checked, we are 87 subscribers away from 1,000 on our YouTube channel. Thank you all for who have already hit that. If you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button right now. We want to get to 1,000. It will help the podcast out tremendously. Please do that right now. So the biggest story, I think, other than the offensive line, is that we have 4 new coordinators. I don't know if you want to call it that, heading into next year, because Hafley put basically 2 at each of the big units. Matt Thurin's still the special teams coordinator. He hasn't changed. Mitch, what are the storylines heading into this game around the coordinators?
Again, I think it's going to be tough to really draw anything out from the spring game, but I think given the changes on the offense, you have to think about what kind of personnel package, what kind of formations, what kind of play calling you're going to see from the offensive coordinators. And again, I think we need to take it with a grain of salt, but I think it'll be interesting to see how the snap distribution goes in terms of who's getting snaps in what role. I know that Rob Chudzinski is based on my research, he's very partial to heavier personnel grouping. So 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 21, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 22, 13, so on and so forth. So I think it's interesting to see who is going to be getting. You kind of assume George Takis is going to be the tight end 1. So it'll be interesting to see who is getting snaps as the tight ends 2 and 3. Do those change based on if the offense is in shotgun versus where they're under center, run versus pass? And again, I don't think they're going to try to give much away, but I think that'll be interesting to look at. Are you going to see packages of multiple running backs in the field, Patrick Garwell and Alex Broom and Kai Robichaud? I think we kind of have a good sense of who the wide receivers are going to be. You assume Joseph Griffin, if he's back healthy, I'm not sure what his status is exactly right now. You assume he's going to be one of the big wide receivers. Ryan O'Keefe is going to be the other one. And then that wide receiver 3 spot is, I think, that'll be interesting to track as well. You've got Jane Williams, Dino Tomlin, Lewis Bond, Ish Zamore, all guys who could be contributors. You could look at hybrid players that are like Tajee Johnson or Xavier Coleman. How are they going to be deployed if they're going to be used in unique ways? Again, they're going to try not to tell us too much, but you might see one snap where something interesting happens. On defense, again, I think they're going to keep it pretty vanilla. It's a vanilla offense, so they're going to give them a vanilla defense. And Hafley is pretty married to certain tendencies anyways, so I don't think you're going to see him break those tendencies just for the spring game. I think you're still going to see a lot of, and I also think that he is going to be more actively involved with coordinating the defense this year. I think he said that in at least one of his postseason press conferences or spring press conferences. So I'm interested to see how I do think they're going to be more aggressive in terms of blitzing and deploying more unique fronts to try to confuse offenses. I could see them being more aggressive to try to dictate the tempo of the game or what kind of plays are going to be able to run to the offense as opposed to being more reactive. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that works out on the defense. I'm also interested to see what a revamped secondary looks like. You bring back Elijah Jones, the veteran of all veterans, but you're getting 2 new safeties. You're probably getting a different slot corner or a slot player, depending on how you define Kari Johnson. And the other cornerback's position across from Elijah Jones will have familiar names, but who will essentially get the lion's share of the snaps? Will it be Amari Jackson? Could it be Jalen Cheek? Could it be somebody else? So seeing how he has reshaped that secondary, and I know a commenter brought this up my AMA, and it was something I was working on a while back, but the change in body type that they've gone for in secondary, you mentioned Alex Washington yesterday, Victor Nelson, Cole Batson, a lot of really tall, long players. And I'm wondering how that looks and how they're going to deploy those kind of body types in a revamped secondary.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really fascinating. I mean, I know you and I were talking about this, but you go from guys like Elijah Jones, even Jaden Woodbay was smaller, to guys that are all 6'2" plus. It's going to be an interesting new a new wrinkle to this defense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because we think about Jason Maitre as being a smaller player, but I also think of him being a guy that was really willing to come up and make big hits and tackle. But it'll be interesting to see how those bigger guys, are they going to be as aggressive or perhaps not, but they might be more reliable or consistent attacking the open field? Because I know Maitre sometimes would go for those big hits and he'd have some misses. Are you going to see more playmaking? I think, you didn't see a ton of that from the safeties, especially this past year. You didn't see them create a lot of turnovers, which I think that's something that might have been something Hafley was really missing from the secondary because, with how bad the offense was last year, you really needed some more opportunities by getting turnovers, which wasn't able to happen. So I think he might be trying to find a way to manufacture more turnovers on this defense so as to give the offense more reps and give them more opportunities and also get the defense off the field, because that's a problem that has plagued BC really the last 2 years, is where the offense has not been able to consistently stay on the field for various reasons, but then the defense has been put out there and had to hold up. And when you keep giving them 80 plus, 90 plus snaps a game, they're just like, listen, we're playing hard, but we're just going to break down eventually just because we can't keep up because of just the number of snaps we're out there.
So that's kind of what the comment I just put up there. They've run out of gas several times last year. Hopefully their conditioning is improved. I don't know. I don't know where you're at. I
think it's interesting because I think a lot about how much they rotated the defensive line, almost like in line changes in hockey last season. So to keep those guys fresh, which is what a lot of teams do, I think you saw, a decent bit of rotation in the linebacker position later in the year, and secondary that was just got plagued by injuries. So yeah, I mean, you could say conditioning, but it's like, listen, when you've got, in the final game, they were playing Isaiah Ferris and Jalen Williams and Steve Lubisher because guys were dropping like flies, not just because of conditioning, because of injury. And as those guys get forced to play more and more snaps, it's not necessarily conditioning, just you're digging deeper into the depth chart, and those guys just don't have either the athletic ability or technical refinement to be consistently successful players.
And before we hit break, I'd like to also mention, I don't even know if I put this on tape yet. I think a lot of folks, and I think Marty Party put it in the comment section already, that it seems like a lot more of the team, and I didn't do a post on it because it makes my eyes bleed doing this, but the weight differences from last year to this year, a lot of guys have bulked up. And
yeah.
I think you're going to see a noticeable difference in a lot of different players getting to college weight. And Hafley's talked about that. A lot of these guys, Jeremiah Franklin was one I mentioned yesterday, who needed to get bigger. But a lot of the Jude Bowery, some of the guys on the defensive line, they're getting bigger and they're becoming more college size. And that might be a big factor for BC, and we might watch some of that on set. That doesn't even matter in terms of how they play, but you're going to notice guys and go, whoa, he's a lot bigger than last
year. I won't go back and look right now, but looking at the offensive line roster, there's 3 guys that are sub 300 pounds, and it's Drew Kendall, Noah Kahapea, and Christian Curatolo. So everybody else is above 300 pounds. I would be very interested to compare that to last year, where I would be willing to argue that the majority, if not a strong plurality of the offensive line, was under 300 pounds.
I know Bowery definitely. I think he was
Bowery was, Kahapea definitely was, Otto Hess was, Kendall was obviously,
Jackson Ness I think was.
Jackson Ness definitely was, Dwayne Alec was, yeah. So a lot of those guys have really added weight, and same thing along the defensive line. Look, guys like Ezraku's listed at 250. That might be generous. Paul's listed at 250, could be generous. Some of these could be the victim of just rounding up to be kind, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see how it looks on the field on Saturday.
All right, in our fight, I gave you 3 players to watch. I'm going to let Mitch give you 3 as well. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, this is Locked On BC, AJ Black, and I am joined by Mitch, and we are discussing the end of spring football as we have the spring game this weekend. I know for some diehard BC fans, it's a lot of fun. For some, they don't care. But if you go around the country, it's a big thing for a lot of folks. And I could go on another 20-minute diatribe about how BC is kind of dropping the ball on making this a bigger deal. Hello, have tailgating. But
well, so aren't this year, is it the same day as the whole, there's a baseball game, softball game, and lacrosse game? Or is that the next day?
No, that's that day. It's spring.
Okay. Fest. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, if they haven't added tailgating, that is stupid. But I think that's kind of a fun way. It's like, hey, like we've got sports on all day. Bring your family to watch a whole lot of sports.
Yep. And I will be there. I will be at the media session. I will take kids off with my wife, but I will be there to watch the game, and I'll be at this media session to talk to Hafley afterwards. So you can you'll get some firsthand experience from me there. Now, Mitch, I gave you 3 names to watch for on yesterday's episode. Tell these people out there some names that you might want to watch for.
So I'm going to go in order. Well, I'll start with Gilbert Tungrangu, who's a redshirt freshman defensive line. And the reason why I'm bringing him up, because he had a lot of praise last year, I think in spring and in summer camp. It might not have been spring. I don't know if he was an early enrollee, but I know he got a lot of praise last year before he suffered a season-ending injury that knocked him out for the whole year. So we didn't get to see him play at all. So I think he'll be interesting to watch to see if the injury, sapped any of his athletic ability. I think he gained some weight, which is good, but it'll be interesting to see like how is he going to perform on that stage where he's finally able to play. So I think he's one interesting to watch. Another one is Kari Johnson. I mentioned him earlier as the transfer from Arkansas, who is coming in, and he wore a lot of different hats for Arkansas. He's played safety, he's played corner, he's played in the slot. I anticipate him being Josh DeBerry's replacement in the slot, given his size at 5'10", 193. I think he'll be an interesting player to watch, see how he's deployed, see how his game compares to Josh DeBerry. And I'll go back to another younger player, Holden Simons, freshman tight end. I mentioned earlier about how much Chudzinski loves to use tight ends in a variety of ways. And last year, again, George Takis was hurt a good bit, so you saw them have to dip into the depth chart. A few guys transferred out. You lost Spencer Witter. You still have guys like Hans Lillis, who was a useful blocking tight end later in the year. Charlie Gordinier is still on the roster. Apparently, he's been getting some more reps, which is good. Jeremiah Franklin, again, had some struggles. We'll see what's happening with him. But, depending on how he wants to use him, I'm intrigued to see if Holden Simons could be, see if he could crack into that depth chart as a true freshman. We saw Jeremiah Franklin do that last year as a true freshman. Simons is a bit more prototypical size, listed at 6'6", 247, which is essentially what Takis was last year. So that's intriguing. And I'll throw out one honorable mention just because it's funny. Jackson Gugney, who was a transfer. He was originally recruited as a defensive back, but he is now the team's long snapper, which was a recent, I don't know when it happened, but that was a recent change. So all right, so I think he was a backup corner or something. Then so now essentially with Gunnar Daniel gone, they were like, hey, we need somebody to come in and snap long snap. So this could be another storyline to follow, because if they go out there and the snaps are really bad during the spring game, then they're going to go out and need to find somebody who can actually do this job. Because
so they've got a guy coming from Penn State. I don't think he's there yet.
Oh yeah, that's right. I always forget they have, because he's not. I don't think he's listed on the train. But yeah, I do.
He's not there yet.
Yeah, I do remember getting him. But hey, maybe Jackson Gugney will be the guy.
Is he? He's got a lot to live up to, because Gunnar Daniel had that amazing mullet, and also I think he was number 69.
He wore 69. Nice. Yeah, I mean Jackson Gugney just sounds like a Star Wars character, so I'm kind of in on that. But other than that, I mean that'll just be something to keep an eye on during the spring game.
Yeah, I have fun. I've always had fun at the spring game, but this is why I do a BC podcast 5 days a week, was because I'm a complete BC nerd, and I'm a glutton for punishment. So thank you, Mitch, for giving those names. I see some people out there. Marty's got some names that he's looking for.
Talk about sickos. That's Marty's one.
Marty is a die, and I love him.
Yeah, I think he mentioned Quan Williams yesterday. Yeah, I mean, we talked. I wanted to get some new names because I know AJ, you talked about Bowery yesterday.
Yep.
I think somebody mentioned Quan Williams yesterday. Yeah, I mean, I think the duo of him and Cam Horsley is going to be I think that's an underrated duo. I think they're going to be really good this year.
I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we're both big Nigel Tate fans on this show, so I hope we get to see some of him because I think he could be an impactful player.
And you mentioned Holden Simmons as a Steelers fan. He has been trained Pat Fryermuth for a while.
There we go. That's good. I like that.
He's a newer football player. I've talked to him quite a bit. He's just started playing in the last year, but he's a big dude. BC fans are going to really like him. Mitch, where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE on Twitter. I just published an article that is kind of breaking down the arguments pro or con for Zay Flowers being the first wide receiver taken in the NFL draft. I think that's an interesting piece you should go check out on Eagle Insider. If you're interested in any of my other work that kind of deals with the NFL draft, I still write for Fansided, the Steelers website for them, Still Curtain. So again, just go to my Twitter. You can check all that. And also, I did recently add the link to my NFL draft spreadsheet where I have all my prospect rankings and big board mock drafts, what have you. That's in my website link on Twitter. And I'm pretty sure it's listed as a viewer link. So if it's an editor link, please don't just Control A and delete everything because I will be very sad.
Well, I always go back and go to previous revisions, right? So this is AJ. Thank you all. Up on Eagle Insider, I have visitor notes. I have a bunch of new official visits. That's what you guys want to know about. I mean, guys get offers, guys come on official visits, but it's when they get to use their 4 official visits that you're going to want to know about. I've got some new ones. I got 2 more coming up tomorrow for our premium subscribers. It's 50% off still until the spring. I think it's actually past the spring game. Sign up today, get your membership. It is well worth it. We'll be back again tomorrow to continue breaking down the spring game, and we'll get into all the details and everything that you want to know as you get ready to head to Chestnut Hill on Saturday. For Mitch Wolfe, this is AJ Black. We'll see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.